What is up, guys? My name is Matt from Magic the Greatening, and today I got to you the deck you guys voted for, Black, White, Vampires. Oh yeah, this deck is actually really good. Every time I've made these tribal decks, I've been really surprised about how powerful they can be, and vampires are no different. Before we get into the video, go ahead, hit that like button, helps out a lot. Subscribe if you are new, and click the eye icon, top right corner, vote for next video's deck tech. 2 choices, Green, Red, and Rage, and Grixis Raid. Yeah, let's get into it. Alright, we're going to get into the creatures first, but I need to explain the game plan with this deck. You're going to be surprised with this main board. Really surprised. We're not playing any removal. All our cards are built on building our board up. There's not a single thing of removal. There's not a single thing of protection. We are vulnerable against control decks that run a lot of sweepers. I'm going to say that right now. But against decks that don't run any sweepers, we do really well. And don't worry, we have sideboard plans against sweepers. Don't worry about that. But we are built about putting as many vampires out as possible and winning the game as early as possible. So let's start with the 1 and 2 drops here. We're going to be playing 4 copies of Vicious Conquistador, 4 copies of Metallic Mimic, 2 copies of Bloodcrazed Paladin, and 4 copies of Bishop Soldier. Okay, so Vicious Conquistador is the only, well, not the only 1-drop. There's a 9-creature spell that's 1-drop that gives us vampires, and if you know those cards, you should know what that card is. But anyway, Vicious Conquistador, 1 black for a 1/2 vampire. It says whenever this attack, each opponent loses 1 life. This is a really strong, aggressive card. Not only in a vampire deck, but in any aggressive deck. It makes me want to remake my black-red aggro deck because this card fits in perfectly. If you get in 2 attacks with it, it'll deal 4 damage. Like, that's ridiculously powerful. Again, he's a vampire. He's our only 1-drop. We're going to play 4 copies of him. Obviously, the 4 copies of Metallic Mimic because it's a Metallic Mimic and we're playing a lot of vampires. A lot of token vampires, too. So Metallic Mimic's going to be a little bit better in this deck than it was in my Pirates deck. And maybe not my Merfolk, but it'll be about the same in my Merfolk. 2 Bloodcrazed Paladin. Now, this card is terrible unless your opponent is running sweepers. This is a great bounce back from a sweeper. You leave up 2 mana, they sweep your board of like 5, 6, 7 vampires, and then you flash this out on end step, and it comes in with like 5, 6, 7 counters on it. And it's just a great bounce back from a wiped board. Now, you could probably run like 3 of this and then 3 Bishop Soldier, which I'm playing a 4 of. I just felt like we are already so weak to sweepers that I didn't need to like try to make a last-ditch effort and be all desperate and say, oh, we can bounce back from sweepers super well. But yeah, Bloodcrazed Paladin is a good bounce back against a sweeper. That's just simply it. We're also playing a lot of tokens, so if a lot of those die due to like chump blocking or we're trying to like triple block something to kill it, 4 creatures die in a turn, you got a 2 mana 5/5 with flash. That's super strong. Yeah, so then 4 Bishop Soldier is just a vanilla 2 mana 2/2 vampire with lifelink, which is super strong. Not only if it can get buffed by like Metallic Mimic, but a 2 mana 2/2 lifelink is like actually good. Like, I know it seems super vanilla and super weak, but it's not. So if it gains just 2 or 4 life, then it's done its job. All right, let's move to the 3 drops now. And we're only playing a few of them. We're going to be playing 4 copies of Legion Conquistador and 3 copies of Maven Fiend Dusk Apostle. I'm pretty sure I messed up Maven Fiend's name, the legendary vampire's name. But let's go over Legion Conquistador first, because this card is Squadron Hawk in Standard, and it's a vampire, and it's a 2/2 instead of a 1/1, even though Squadron Hawk has flying. Yeah, this is super strong. Like, it's an uncommon, but for 3 mana, you get to put a 2/2 out and then put 3 other creatures in your hand from your deck. Why not? It feels so strong, and I feel like a lot of people are looking over this card, and it's not only going to be good in a deck like Vampires, but it's going to be good in a deck like Blue-White Monument, which is, I guess, rotating out, which loses a lot of its pieces. But in like a mono-white Monument deck, this card's bonkers, and it's bonkers in this deck too. Like, getting 3 creatures out of 1 creature is just insane value. There's nothing more to say about it. And then Maven Fiend is just a 3 of in the deck. I was playing full 4, but I bumped down to 3. Most of the times he gets removed, the turn he comes out, he'll either get countered or shocked or magma sprayed or fatal pushed. You guys know. If you can keep him out and you can attack, you can start getting tokens with him, he's really good. And that's the reason. But outside of that ability, a 3-mana 2/2, not that good. I mean, it's Legion Conquistador, but worse. Unless, obviously if you have that attack ability. But yeah, those are our 3 drops. Let's move up in the curve. We're playing some 4 and 5 drops, so let's get into them. We're playing 4 copies of Sanctum Seeker, 2 copies of Vona, Butcher of Magan, and 3 copies of Bishop of the Bloodstained. Man, some of these vampire names are just super whack. But anyway, Sanctum Seeker is a 4-mana 3/4 vampire. It says whenever a vampire you control attacks, you drain your opponent for, how many vampires you're attacking with. That's really good. Like, if you guys haven't noticed, we're playing a lot of 1, 2, and 3 drops. So then you drop this, you swing with like 3 or 4 vampires, and then you drain your opponent for 4 before those creatures even do combat damage. This card really ties the deck together. It's not only our only 4-drop in the deck. I mean, we're playing a non-creature spell that's 4 mana too, but it's not only our 4 mana converted cost creature. It is probably the strongest vampire in the entire deck. It just straight up is. This is a game ender. You have 5, 6, 7 vampires out, and your opponent didn't sweep your board. You attack with everyone. You drain for 7. They can settle the Wreckage you or something like that, but then you still get the drain for 7. The card is ridiculous if it can stay out. Obviously, it can get cut. It can get Revolted Fatal Push. It can get Harness Lightning. But outside of that, it dodges most of the main removal people are running right now. So the card is bonkers. Fits in the deck super well. No reason not to play 4 of. Then the 3 of Bishop of the Bloodstained is just like this, but a little bit weaker. For 5 mana, you get a 3/3 that says whenever Bishop of the Bloodstained enters the battlefield, target player loses 1 life for each vampire you control. I think this is just straight up weaker. Obviously, if your board gets swept when you play Sanctum Seeker on turn 4, it's weak. But in Bishop's like the enter the battlefield effect. But I just like Sanctum much better. But I'm not going to complain about Bishop. So yeah, and then 2 Vona is a 5-mana 4/4 Vigilance Lifelink vampire. That's a legendary. It says you could tap and pay 7 life and destroy target non-land permanent. That is really strong. Like, a lot of people are going to be running like with Planeswalkers. Planeswalker is going to be everywhere. Control is going to be everywhere. We want to be able to destroy non-land permanents. So this can help us do that. I only wanted to play a 2 of because outside of that ability, if you're behind, this card's bad. If you're ahead, this card's really good. That's why we're only playing the 2 copies of it. Obviously, if you're behind, it's a 5-mana 4/4 lifelink, which isn't terrible. But you're obviously never going to use that tap ability and pay 7 life when you're behind. So yeah, that's the reason of the 2 of in the deck. All right, let's go to the 9 creature spells now. And these are just token-making stuff. We're not playing Anointed Procession, oddly enough. But we're going to be playing 3 copies of Legion's Landing and 3 copies of Call to the Feast. Legion's Landing, the legendary enchantment. We had these legendary enchantment cycles, and this is the first one I've actually put in one of my decks. For 1 mana, you get a legendary enchantment that puts a 1/1 white vampire creature token with lifelink. Okay, that's pretty good. Then it says when you attack with 3 or more creatures, you transform this. And this transforms into, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that second half of the backside of it, but it's a legendary land that you can tap for white mana, or you can pay 3 and tap it to create a 1/1 lifelinker. Yeah, that's kind of strong. Especially in a 1 mana enchantment. Obviously, it's legendary, which is why we only want to play 3 of. You can have the legendary enchantment and the legendary land out at the same time. Like, let's say you play Legion's Landing, then it transforms, then you play another Legion's Landing. But the moment you attack with 3 creatures, the second one will transform, and you'll have to put one in the graveyard. So do keep that in mind. And then Call to the Feast. For 4 mana, you get 3 1/1 lifelinkers, which is super strong if you have Metallic Mimic out, because you put 6 power out that are all lifelink. Super, super strong. No reason not to play this. 4 mana, even if it doesn't have Metallic Mimic out, it's 4 mana for 3 1/1 lifelinkers. Okay, let's talk about the lands now. The lands are just as important as the creatures and the non-creature spells in this deck, for very good reason. We're going to be playing 4 copies of Concealed Courtyard, 4 copies of Shefet Dunes, 1 copy of Ifnir Dreadland, 7 Plains, and 8 Swamps. Obviously, if you're trying to keep this as budget as possible, you don't have to play Concealed Courtyard. You'd probably replace that with, like, 2 Swamps and 2 Evolving Wilds or something like that. But I do want you guys to be playing the Shefet Dunes and the 1 Ifnir Dreadlands. Shefet Dunes, since we're trying to have this go-wide strategy, Shefet Dunes is really good for that. Not only giving our teams buff, but I mean, we're already super wide, so it should be hard for our opponents to deal with a super wide board. And then if we obviously give them an Anthem effect, we should just win the game when we do that. And then what if your Dreadlands to act as a somewhat of removal? I mean, we're only playing the 1 of just because. But yeah, those are the lands. Let's move to the sideboard. Okay, I will probably have this in the description too, but you guys need to really... The sideboard is super important in this deck, because when you don't play anything that protects your creatures from sweepers and you don't play any removal, your sideboard's got to be strong. And I think the sideboard that we have here is built pretty well. I think we do really well against midrange and aggro decks. It's just control decks we're going to have problems with. So 4 cast out against planeswalkers. I mean, what else can you like about cast out? Also can cycle to draw us a card. 4 duress, because that's just super strong against control. We don't like sweepers in their hands. We don't like them having like glimmers or harness lightnings or stuff like that. 3 lost legacy against specifically sweepers. Like if you see a sweeper game 1, maybe it's Bontu's Last Reckoning, Fumigate, stuff like that, or Settle the Wreckage, stuff that you don't usually like. You can use Lost Legacy and kick it out. Or if it's like a combo deck, or if it's basically any non-artifact combo deck, you can use this to get rid of those pesky cards you can't deal with. And then 4 Saving Grace, which is actually a really, really strong card to save us from sweepers. Obviously, we have Duress and Lost Legacy against sweepers, but Saving Grace can help us from burn sweepers. It can save us from Hour of Devastation. It can save us from Sweltering Suns. It can save us from Starve Extinction, which I don't think anyone's going to be playing, but it can also do that. So Saving Grace, for 2 mana, is a flash enchantment aura. You have to enchant a creature you control. When it enters the battlefield, all damage that would be dealt this turn to you and permanents you control is dealt to enchanted creature instead, and that creature gets a +3 health boost. That is super strong. I play this in some of my other budget sideboard decks, or the sideboards of my budget decks, but it really fits here, A, because we're not playing green, so we can't play Heroic Intervention or something like that, but B, stops Hour of Devastation, which probably going to start seeing a little bit more play now, so Saving Grace stops that. It's actually an answer to that, especially in the colors in black and white, so... yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. This deck is actually really strong and really good, and I really like it. In the description, I'll have like a budget version of this deck, what to take out, what to put in, some flexibility cards depending on your local meta, stuff like that. I always do that. The top pinned comment I always have usually points you guys in that direction anyway. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in a few days.